Good morning, everybody from Washington, D.C. in the United States. Thank you so much for having me. My name is James Brinton. I'm a speech and language pathologist, and I've been working with locked-in populations for the last 8 years. Um, I want to share I have a few slides to share some pictures, some ideas for the next 10 minutes. And so let me make sure that that gets up on the screen here. Give just a moment. Slideshow. Okay, you should be seeing my slides now.
We are indeed. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So I've called this From Gestures to Gadgets, Communication with Locked-in Syndrome. Thank you for being here. I would welcome any questions in the chat. I will also be sharing at the end of these few slides a couple resources that you see here, a few links that you can open up and save afterward. And Shannon, I can send these links to you afterward so you can share with the community as well.
Would be great. Thank you very much. I'll put them on as well.
Great. I'd like to cover a few brief ideas. So first, let's talk about yes and no communication. What is it and what does it look like? I'm going to present to you some non-tech communications tools that you can create and make inexpensively and carry around with you anywhere you go. We're going to talk a little bit about partner-assisted communication, and then I'm going to introduce some high-tech communication tools for individuals with locked-in syndrome. I'd like to begin with the Communication Bill of Rights. If you've never heard of the Communication Bill of Rights, this is a powerful document for you, for your support staff, for your nurses, for your families. And the Communication Bill of Rights, and I'm going to read this directly, states that all people with a disability of any extent or any severity have the basic right to affect through communication the conditions of their existence. So all of us, you have the right to communicate and impact the conditions where you exist. Beyond this general right, there are a number of specific communication rights that you have that should be ensured in daily interactions, daily interventions involving people who have severe disabilities and the people who care for them. So you can fully participate in communication interactions. Each person has fundamental rights. And I will share this at the end. Some of these communication rights are the right to interact socially and to maintain closeness through relationships. You have the right to express your personal feelings. You have the right to request objects and items. You have the right to refuse objects and items. You have the right to be informed, to be communicated with. You have the right to direct your medical care. You have the right to AAC options. AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. So AAC are tools that augment your communication, that allow you different alternative ways of communication. If you're not speaking with your mouth and your voice, there are tools that you have the right to use to communicate for you. You have the right to be spoken to and communicated with absolute dignity every day by every person that you interact with. So this is the bedrock of everything we're going to be speaking about next. You have the right to exist and be communicative and to be communicated to with dignity and love and connection. Let's talk a little bit about yes-no communication. What is it? Yes-no communication is when somebody will ask the individual with locked-in syndrome yes and no questions and wait for a response. In order to have this response, we need to find some sort of reliable physical sign in the body of the person with locked-in syndrome. And many people use their eyes to signal yes and no. Some people might raise a slight muscle in their eyebrow to signal yes or no. What I've seen over time is that if we provide simple and direct yes or no questions and allow the person with locked-in syndrome to respond in the way that is most reliable for them, it might be looking up for yes, and looking down for no, or it might be looking up for yes and close the eyes for no. We have to provide questions one at a time and wait. So, for example, I might ask, "Are you cold?" and then wait for the response. I watch the eyes, and then when they say, "Yes, I am cold," I can ask, "Is this the blanket that you would like?" And I show them a choice and allow them to answer yes or no. This can get complicated if we ask too many questions at the same time, or our questions are convoluted and not direct. So here's what not to say. Do not say, "Are you hot or cold?" Remember, we have to ask one choice and allow the person who is locked in to answer yes or no before moving on to the next choice. And then instead of asking, "Where is the blanket?" we need to locate the blanket and say, "Is this the blanket you were thinking of?" and allow them to respond yes or no with their eyes. So these are a few examples of yes and no communication. Let's talk a little bit about the sign for yes and no. Some people rely on blinking and other people rely on looking in specific directions. Blinking is not ideal because blinking is a natural reflex that we need to protect our eyes, to hydrate our eyes, to sleep, and to survive. So relying on the blink reflex for yes and no answers can be complicated because sometimes we just need to naturally blink aside from when we need to give an answer. So I would recommend that you find a system that works best for you. And I've seen looking up for yes, down for no, a good working option, or look right for yes and look left for no. We know that yes and no alone is a very binary choice and is very limiting. So some people might expand it just a little bit. So they might look up for yes and down for no. They look right for sometimes and left for rarely. So instead of 2 binary choices, we expand it to 4 choices. Next, I'd like to talk about a few non-tech communication items. What I have here is called an E-Tran board. An E-Tran board is a homemade plastic board that your communication partner can hold up in between the person who is locked in and themselves. And on that board is transparent so you can see through it. There's a hole in the middle, as you see. And on that board, the person either puts word choices or pictures and allows the position of these pictures on this board that's in between that communication interaction to provide choices for the person who is locked in. So you might ask a question, "Which of these do you need?" And the person looks at the item that is provided. So on this illustration, you see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 choices. So you ask a question that has 8 possible answers, and you allow the person who is locked in to look at the answer or the response that they want. This is nice because this is portable. It's customizable. These are little slips of paper that can be taped on or off and be changed. This is very portable, so this can travel with you when you are in your shower chair, in the shower, and can go with you as a communication tool. It's nice because it's fairly lightweight and other people in your family and situation can learn how to use it with a good model. It's fairly inexpensive to make. We do have to acknowledge that there are limited choices here. This is limiting your utterances to 8 choices. So it can do the job in a pinch, but it is not giving you the full expanse of your communication rights. Here's another example of an E-Tran board that has expanded. So you see that we have yes and no on the right and left. We have different colors and different letters. So this is an example of an E-Tran, a physical communication board that allows the person who is locked in to use their eyes and the directions they point to start spelling words. Now, some people find this a great tool. Other people find this a little bit complex. So let's move on to some other no-tech communication tools. Sometimes people will put in their living quarters on the wall a poster that has the most frequently requested items or requests. So number 1 is TV on, number 2 is TV off. We have I'm hot, I'm cold, give me my glasses, I need suctioning. So a poster board that's hung up in the room can be pointed to, and the person might say, is it number 4? Is it number 5? And you wait for the person who's locked in to give the signal for yes or no with their eyes. A poster board, again, can be hung up in different areas of the home. It can be easily customized, and it's fairly simple for everybody, all communication partners, to learn. Again, we know that a poster like this is also fairly limited in the amount of information that the person who is locked in can respond to. And it really requires practice for us as the family and support staff to understand the responses of the individual that we're communicating with. So we want to remember that this requires practice and patience, not only patience for the communication partner, the spouse, the caregiver, but patience for the person who is locked in, who is providing the responses. This requires us to provide plenty of wait time so the person can give us the correct answer that they intend to give us. And we always follow it up with reassurance. Let's say that we have an interaction where we're trying to communicate and we keep making mistakes and frustration is building. It's so important for us, the communication partners, to provide reassurance. We might say, I know there's something really important that you're trying to tell me, but I'm having a hard time getting the message. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then let's come back to this because what you have to say is really important, and I want to try it again. So giving each other reassurance that communication is so important, and communication keeps us connected to the people around us and the world around us. So there's an example of a poster board that you can make. Next, I want to move on to something called partner-assisted spelling. And I will share in the chat after this the link where I got this partner-assisted spelling board, and it has some example videos of how to use partner-assisted spelling. Now, partner-assisted spelling is a physical paper that you print out or you write up, and the communication partner holds this letter board. You'll notice here that each row starts with a vowel. We have A, E, I, O, U, and then we have some numbers at the bottom. So we have the A row, the E row, I row, O row, and U row. What I would do is we would hold this paper up with our communication partner, and we would go row by row. So A, E, I, and when we get to the row that the person is going to be spelling and indicating with their eyes, when I get to the correct row, I'm going to watch the person who is locked in to give the signal with their eyes for yes. So let's say I got down to the I row and they gave me the signal for yes. So I know that the letter that they want to start spelling with is in the I row. Then I would go letter by letter, I, J, K, L. Every time I go through a letter, I watch for the signal for yes. Through this interaction, row by row and letter by letter, the partner will assist the person who is locked in to get to the right letter and watch for the sign for yes with their eyes. So they're looking up when I get to the right letter. We go row by row, letter by letter. This is a slow and very detailed way to communicate specific words and allow the person to explicitly tell us what they need to have communicated letter by letter, word by word. You'll notice after the A and E row, we have a space bar, we have mistake, start over. At the bottom, we have numbers. Partner-assisted spelling is very detailed. It can be very laborious for both communication partners, and it takes a lot of practice. It also takes memory for both parties to remember what letter they did last. And often we find that practice helps, and you can become fluent in this type of communication. That's called partner-assisted spelling. It's really important for us, the staff, the family, to have some partner tools available. So by the bedside, a notebook and paper, so the partner who is helping assist in spelling can write down the words to take off some of that memory load. So just a paper and pencil or a small whiteboard and markers. And available by the bedside are really important. This is important too because it allows all of our medical staff, the nurses, the children, the spouses to have some sort of communication tool right at the bedside. So there's no excuse that things are not written down and that they're not remembered. On the right, we have something called a boogie board. Now, this is a very inexpensive electronic tablet that you can find on Amazon. I found it at a toy store, and it has a small battery inside. It allows you to take the pencil at the bottom, write a few notes, and the top button is an eraser. So it just erases. It's a very short-term notepad. It's fun. Kids and adults like it, and it's portable. So you can take it with you, and as you're spelling, you can write down words so you can get the full message that's intended. So these are some good partner tools. Next, I'd like to move into high-tech communication options. Often, individuals who are locked in can, if they're looking at high-tech augmentative and alternative communication devices, they look at eye gaze access. Eye gaze is a computer tablet with an eye tracker at the bottom that, when it's set up in front of the individual and is calibrated to their eye movements, the eye tracker at the bottom will read the eye movements of the person who is locked in and allow them access to keyboards that will speak for them, phrase pages, internet, email. So it's a computer tablet, and with your eyes, you're using the movement of your eyes as the keyboard and mouse, and the device will speak for you. A high-tech communication device like this provides expansive communication. So when set up properly, it allows the person to type out sentences, chapters, questions, directives at their free will. It has keyboards, phrase pages, gives you computer access. It has an emergency call bell that you activate just by looking at with your eyes. It allows you to connect to your phone and send text messages, connect to your social media pages, and surf the internet. These devices come at an expense depending on where you are in the world. Your medical insurance may pay for this, or you may have some government-funded assistance for communication devices. These devices also take training and need support, and they have the frailties of any communication device. They have to be plugged into a power source at times, and et cetera, et cetera. So there are definitely pros to each one of these communication tools, but also cons. Here's an example of what an eye gaze device simply set up in front of somebody looks like. So here we have Lana. She's reclined in a power chair. You can use these devices laying down flat. You can be reclined. You can be sitting up in a power wheelchair, in a recliner, and the device is placed in front of you. The camera is pointed at your eyes, and you're using your eye movements to direct the keyboard and the voice functions, and it speaks for you. So here she's got a keyboard. It's connected up to her other computer, and she's communicating. There are a few resources I love to point people to. Two companies specifically, if you're looking at high-tech devices to look into. The first is eyegaze.com. This company is based out of the United States and has a very long history of providing eye gaze communication devices across the globe. They're in more than 50 countries now, and they provide remote training and remote support that's very customized. And this is a very robust device for people who have complex eyes and complex bodies. If you're in the UK, there's a great company called Smartbox. Their website is thinksmartbox.com. If you're in the UK, I know this conference is being hosted out of the UK. You may have quicker access to Smartbox devices through your funding source. So I would look into both of these companies to see their options. Here are a few sample screens. So in the lower left, we have a keyboard screen. So you'll notice there are all the letters of a keyboard. There are some keyboard functions. In the upper left-hand corner, there's a button that when you look at it, it will speak. So you type out with your eyes, and then you look at the speak button, and it produces a voice of what you typed. On the right, we have a phrase page that can be customized to your medical needs. So if you look at the button that says, "I need suctioning," it will say, "Hey, I need suctioning." So these devices are highly customizable and very specific. And that is, let me drop some of these links in the chat, and we'll go to the chat quickly. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to put in the chat is the partner assisted spelling board and example videos. Go ahead, Shannon.
I was going to say, whilst James is doing that, if anybody's got any questions, have a big think about it and then present your question to James immediately if you'd like to. We've got time.
Jeg har jo 1,1% fast. Nå, i denne perioden, så øker stillingen til 100. Det var 70 volum, 30 som lærerskap. I det resten av året? Ja.
Anybody have any questions for James?
James,
All
are
right.
you involved in any research around developing new devices? Are you
No,
often asked to try them?
I currently work in a position where I have exposure to many different communication devices. I used to work for a manufacturer of these devices, so I was involved in some of the research there, but now I'm more of a practicing clinician and an assessor for people who need these devices. Good question. I also put in here the link for the Communication Bill of Rights, and that's a very powerful tool for any family members or clinicians here.
That was really interesting to see that actually spelt out on the screen for us, what the rights are.
Yeah.
Very moving.
I've seen so many families without knowing, speaking for their loved one or assuming because they've been in a relationship with their loved one who is locked in for years and years that they know what they want or they know what they want for, what they want to wear. And when we give someone even the basic dignity to allow them to choose what blouse they want, what they like to watch on TV, among the many important things that we need in our lives, that showing that basic dignity can really change the dynamic and increase our love and closeness when we give each other options. And that can take trial and error and practice with the right tools.
Make a huge difference to quality of life, feeling that you've got a way of expressing your needs and wants.
And I would also say that there are a handful of books out there that have been written by individuals who are locked in, using their eyes and reading their stories and their journeys in communication can be very empowering and informative to all of us.
And of course, at the moment, I'm in the process of putting together a book with lots of the locked-in syndrome people, 12 of them, in fact, who are going to be writing their story, and they're all writing it themselves. They're all typing it up themselves. They've had a year to do it. So any of you out there watching, you locked-in syndrome authors, I'll be on to you in September for your copy, please. And we'll get that published with Routledge, the publishers, at the end of the year. So yes, you're quite right, James. Any other questions?
Well, thank you for having me. Yes, any other questions? I'll stay on here for a while to answer any questions.
Hey, James, maybe the thing you just said, that sometimes with locked in, that the partners feel like they know what someone wants, and do you mean that you have experienced also discrepancies in that people maybe fill in what someone wants and that it's maybe different when they are able to communicate? Or
yes, I worked with a woman who was locked in for about 10 years, and I was called in by another speech therapist to say, hey, would eye gaze be high-tech eye gaze? Would that be appropriate for this person? Because the family had said, no, that doesn't work for us. We're not going to try that. So we had to really do a little bit of diving with that family. When I went in and really observed the communication that was happening, this family was giving their mother and wife very few choices. They were really making all the decisions for her. And I believe that part of that was the culture that they came from, where that's just how it landed, that other strong personalities in the family were really deciding and thinking what they knew. We assessed this woman. Her eye movement was beautiful. It was strong. It was consistent. And when we put a device in front of her, she calibrated and she started typing immediately. As we got this device in front of her, she got her own device and got practicing. We saw that one of the things that was most important for her was she told her husband with her eyes, and it spoke out loud, "I want to choose what I wear every day."
Yeah.
To him, that was not important, but to her, that was something that made her feel good and gave her joy. And that was her. What we say is really a reflection of our soul, our heart. And that was her coming out saying, "Oh, that thing back in the closet that I haven't worn for 8 years, that's what I want to wear today." Aside from that, once she got access to communication, she was able to tell her social worker that one of her nurses was not treating her right. That's really powerful. That impacts health. That impacts quality of life. The dynamic in the house, because mom was communicating again, shifted dramatically and in a beautiful way. That window was open up for her. Her country of origin was Colombia, so she was emailing her cousins in Colombia. She was going online. She has now passed away, but before she passed away, she had reconnected with her family. She had once again participated in her medical care, got to fire one of her nurses who was not doing things correctly, and really be a part of the family again. And that had been taken from her for 10 years about. So that was a beautiful illustration of when families are open to and have the resources to try technology, it can make a difference. That's a best case scenario. High-tech eye gaze devices don't work perfectly for everybody, and the low-tech devices that we covered can be laborious and take a lot of practice and a lot of patience in the communication dynamic. So I like to stress patience is a great virtue to bestow not only on the communication partner, but the person themselves to say, "I'll work letter by letter. We'll get this." Do you know if the UK has a similar Bill of Rights for communication? Chrissy, I'm not sure. This Communication Bill of Rights has been adopted by the American Speech Language Hearing Association, and I'm not sure if Britain's Speech Language Therapist Association, I imagine they have something very similar. I will say one more thing. Some people let's say you're in Egypt or you're in Dubai, and you don't know if you ever have access to, you don't know a company that makes these. I know the first company, eyegaze.com, they do international assessments by Zoom and can determine whether or not you might be a candidate. So the physical distance can be a limitation, but not an absolute, no-go for some people. So reach out to their website and see what's possible if that's something that you're interested in. And then I would also encourage you, if you feel like you're really stuck in a rut, find a speech therapist in your town, in your county that can come in and assess and maybe provide a few suggestions to help you and your loved ones communicate a little better, even if it's using no-tech tools. Improvements can always be made. And a speech therapist can come in and maybe talk to the spouse and say, "This is what I observe, and I'm going to model something, and I want you to try it and see if that helps." So bring in a speech therapist if you feel stuck in a rut to learn a few new tools, even if it's nothing that's high tech.
Can I tell, Shannon, can I cut in here?
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Just to tell a story about a patient that I knew, ALS, 30 years. He died a few years ago. And for him, we built what we call well, we didn't really have a name for it, but it was a tiny EMG device that he stuck on his face here. And he had very, very little movement left. But a very slight muscle twitch was picked up, and it gave him a yes or no. And he used your eye gaze. And so he didn't really have good eye movements.
Mm.
But this just opened it up for him. So what did he do? Okay. He got married twice, divorced twice when he had ALS. He ran a business. What else did he do? He gave talks. They would roll him up on the stage to the ALS Association and give talks. And you know, in the US, you had to be 2 years paralyzed before the Medicare would fund you. He went to the Congress, to Washington, gave him hell, and immediately they changed the law. That's the kind of guy you need. I mean, he was just so alive and so determined. And then he developed cancer. He had the surgery in his face. He had all sorts of problems. He finally, I think he gave in and allowed himself to be taken off the ventilator. And, you know, it was so sad. But I mean, 30 years of ALS, 2 kids. He was diagnosed when his daughter was born. He was diagnosed with ALS, which was really, really sad. We actually did an implant on him, and it had to be taken out for medical reasons, but he did well with that too. But the little device we built to put on his face and just detect tiny little twitches of muscle was all he needed.
Wow.
We still
That's
have some of those devices. I still have his device because he gave
Oh,
it to me.
wow.
Yeah. So if you want to check it out, you're welcome.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it was great.
What year around would that have been that you were working with that device with him?
Oh, from about 2000 onwards, he died about 3 or 4 years ago. So
Okay.
yeah, we tried to get it commercialized, but you know, these things are difficult. But
Yeah, yeah.
it's still available. It's very easy to build.
Do you
So
know what is that EMG switch called? Is it still available?
well, we call them muscle mouse and Morse, but that
Muscle
was,
mouse.
yeah, we call it the muscle mouse. I don't even know if it's, you're probably looking on the internet. I'm not sure if it's even on that still.
When I search on the internet, it comes up with a cute picture of a mouse who's been working out at the gym. I did put in the chat, there is a company out of the United States called Control Bionics that has made an EMG switch that can be placed on various parts, and it's integrated with a communication device. These devices are wonderful. There are so many limitations because of where they can be sent, and the cost can be so prohibitive unless you have insurance or a funding body in your country that provides them. So,
yeah, the cost was high. And
yes, yes.
tried to sell them with their device. I can't remember the name of it now, so long ago, but it was so expensive, it just didn't take off.
Yeah.
You know, double the price because they had to spend time, you know.
Yeah, engineering. Yeah. Yeah. Fernando, thank you. You said the right to communication is included in the UN Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities adopted in 2006. That's wonderful. Is part of human rights legislation. Yeah. It is up to us to advocate for our loved ones and to self-advocate if you are without communication right now. And we're here to help you, Shannon. This community that is here is wonderful. So momentum is moving upward and onward.
It is. It's marvelous to see how every year it's building and building, and more researchers are getting involved. And the more people that know, the more funding goes into it, and the more likely it is that these things will become a reality and become accessible for everybody. Yeah, it's wonderful the work that you're doing, James, and you, of course, Phil. Thank you very much for that really interesting presentation, James. It's another marvelous year from you.
I put my email in the chat. If anybody has questions about that might need to go to a speech therapist, happy to advise, and then of course refer you to another speech therapist near you. But if you ever are in a pinch, the community here is here to help you.
That's very good. Thank you, James. And if anybody doesn't catch that on the chat thing, you can always reach James through me on my Brain Foundation email address. Great. Thank you, James. Lovely to see you again. I hope you stay and enjoy some of the rest of the afternoon.